are the best ways for someone to identify what's their biggest area of opportunity? What have you found is the best ways for somebody to identify this one's actually going to cause me the most gains if I really focus on it?
You're going to hate my answer. You got to ask yourself the question. If you ask yourself the question, what is my greatest area of opportunity? And you ask it today and you like your answer, you journal it out maybe a little bit so you've got a record of it. You come back to it again tomorrow and ask the same question. It might be a little different. It might be the same one, which will tell you something. You ask it a third day in a row, what are my greatest areas of opportunity? What if you asked that question for 30 days? You're going to come up with answers. The more often you can ask that question, you're going to come up with exceptional answers. And instead of me trying to give a blanket answer right now, I'm saying the answer lies within the quality of questions that we ask ourselves. And the question you ask yourself is the right one. What do I need right now to level up?
I did hate your answer until I realized, like, it's not necessarily beneficial to tie yourself to one answer for an extended period of time. So I loved your answer. Once I let you answer.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining us on the CSP Hot Hands 60 Minutes of Fire podcast. My name's Brett Wiggins, and I get to serve as your host. So what is a CSP? CSP is a Cutco sales professional. There are a lot of them out there, and they've all got a different answer to the question, why do you sell so much? Our mission is to find out the answer to that question from as many of them as possible. These next 60 minutes are designed for Cutco sales reps who desire to learn from our best in the field. So we interview top sales professionals from around the country with questions provided by their peers to make all that happen. 60 minutes of fire means we get straight to the point. Let's do it. All right, welcome. CSP High in 60 Minutes of Fire. Season 2. What a way to kick off Season 2. If you joined us for Season 1 and you came back, hopefully that means you enjoyed some things. We're at episode 11 total. So excited for our guest today. This guy worked behind the scenes for over a decade, out of the spotlight, helped some of the highest achievers in our business get to where they are today. Some officially, some unofficially, some in passing. Man, Trent Booth has had a bigger impact than most would understand on our Cutco community. Now the Veritas Leadership Group, so proud, happy. There's a lot of emotions when I think about my relationship with Trent. Just happy to have him here today. I'll tell you that much. Anytime he references a resource that's available to us, he's going to share it with me afterwards so I can share it with you. So TB, you got any charts, visuals? I know in some of our calls, you're big on, hey, I was reading this or saw this, wanted to share it with you. Don't feel the need to share it with me right now. We'll spend the bulk of our time on these hard-hitting questions that our community has put together for you. And I want to directly thank those of you who submitted questions for this episode. It would not be very fire without your help. It would be more like the Colts 2023 season. Like there were some embers there, but ultimately we saw smoke, JT. We saw smoke. See JT out there in the live studio. Dan. So had some managers help out this time too, who have had relationships with you as well, coaching. So want to thank Jake Doherty, Tina Marie, Cam Fox, Peter Sarver, Aaron Harris, Shayla Boker, Jordan Thomas, and John Sasick for helping make this episode fire. By the way, I just realized Tina Marie is like the prince of Cutco. You don't even need to say her first and last name. You just know who Tina Marie is. You ready to jam, TB?
Let's go. Fuego. 60 minutes of fuego. Let's go.
We're going to send it. It's like Sports Center for Cutco. Okay, so help us out here. What positions did you hold while you were in the fields with Cutco?
Love it. Sales rep right through FSM, sold $75,000 back in 1993, 94. I was a pilot manager for Joe Cardillo up in Canada. I started.
Big Joe fan. Shout out Joe C.
I'm
Shout
going
him
to keep
out.
it going. Wait till you hear this. Vonnie Fast and I started within days of each other in Calgary, and she was a contemporary as I was coming up in the business. I was the pilot manager when she was a rep still and an AM, and eventually she like leapfrogged me and became like a
Yeah,
killer
Trent, don't feel
DM.
bad. She leapfrogged everyone, but
I mean,
yes,
it's
yeah.
real. The struggle is real, and so Vonnie and I go way back. We used to like have sales contests. Right now, I could not hold a candle to what she does in terms of sales acumen. But yeah, Vonnie and I started off together there, and I was a pilot manager. And then back in the day, you didn't just go pilot to DM; you had to branch. So I did hold that position, and we qualified. Yay! Did 250K as a branch, and then went DM in Montreal, Canada, way back. Man, this is 95 now,
You had
and
to learn some French to
yeah, I
go.
did. I
Yeah,
did. That was
Montreal.
one of the requirements of getting that post. It's 3 million people in Montreal, but only 1 million of them are English. So yeah, I needed to learn some French. Needed to save some money. Was a DM. Eventually promoted to division coordinator. I did not get the full DVM. Just for clarity, there, I was hired as the national recruiting manager after Jason Flynn. He's the original G, but
That was my intro to TB.
the
Was
second
national
one. So
recruiting.
that's 2004, which is now 20 years. Actually, officially today, the 10th was when
No
I got the
way.
offer. I got the official offer on January 10th to 20 years ago to
Wow.
move down to the States. And that's where my family and I have been since March of '04. So we moved to outside Philly. South Jersey is where Gibbsboro is, Gibbsboro, New Jersey, if you've seen the Vector East headquarters. And what's fun is that Vector University used to be a thing. It's kind of like a leadership development. It's really the foundation for what became the leadership development department.
Mm.
Marty Dimitrovich coached me for like 8 sessions after we had the weekend event. And the 8 sessions by far exceeded any event I'd ever gone to. Just some guy asking me questions, getting into the soil of my life. And unfortunately, when he got sick, he wasn't doing the coaching sessions. They still had a few Vector U's, but the best part was just talking to somebody, pouring into your life for 45 minutes. I didn't identify as a coach, but I had his exercises and I had time.
Mm.
So I would get my work done and then I would just talk to anybody who would talk to me. And some of the names worked out really well, Brett. It was including like one of the first was Mike Monroe, Drew Frank, Wes Frank, Kathy Kristen's on that list. Mike Chu, who's gone on to do some great things there. A number of people that I was coaching were doing really, really well and became outliers. So they asked Nadine Asali, eventually Nadine McGowan, who put me onto this hotshot new DM named Brett Wiggins. So there's a really cool Tina Marie. Really, at some point, I would talk to anybody who would talk to me, and I quickly got 10,000 hours under my belt, expert level. Got certified. And then I started doing coaching outside of Vector just to see if this was going to work, not just in a Vector context, but outside. And so they promoted me to training and leadership development manager, which is a really fancy title. Basically helps people get unstuck.
Anytime somebody's got a title
goal.
like that, it's like, hey, we've got this person. They do something very unique. Let's just create a position for them. That's what that
It was
means.
fun. By
That's
the way,
great.
kudos to Vector, who would like have a leadership development department. They're like, this is so good. Let's pour hundreds of thousands of dollars into this thing over the 10 years I was in that role, like over $1 million into developing the leadership of our company. And yeah, they created a role for me where they let me write my own position description, but I was treating it entrepreneurially and they let me do it, which is incredible. Now, the goal was really to primarily coach. The niche was DMs that we think could become DVMs. And the thinking was the trickle down effect should affect everybody from branches to CSPs, et cetera. And I'm really proud of a lot of that work, including, when you think of how great the CSP community is in the Southwest region, working with Stacy Campbell all those years ago and Wes and Drew, and a lot of the things that I think they felt empowered to do, they were their ideas, but we had a laboratory to think about those things. And so, yeah, I do have certainly some DNA kind of sewn into the CSP community, but I was charged with primarily serving DVMs and those that we saw that could become DVMs. Now, hopefully they do feel the effects of that, but I'm excited now that I'm outside of the Vector machine, having retired a year ago, to do Veritas Leadership Group full-time. We're certifying other coaches at Veritas Leadership Group and primarily coaching in the financial advisor space. So entrepreneurs that are, running a shop of probably 5 to 10 people, It's a group that's usually working hard, but not necessarily hard and smart. And our goal is to increase their productivity, reduce their turnover, and increasing retention, if you will, and make the culture better. So just by asking really smart people good questions, we find that they get unstuck. And that's the goal that we're trying to take now into Vector and really serve the CSP community with Veritas Leadership Group. At this point, I have other certified coaches that are a lower price point than I am to be able to try and help that group as well.
What I love about it, Trent, is your confidence in coaching, but also in yourself and your coaches, where it's like, hey, we're on a handshake. If we're not delivering, the last thing I want you to do is pay for something that's not working.
It's amazing that that's not just in the coaching space, although a lot of coaches will hold people to a contract. We do not, and we've just made a conscious decision to not do that. Now we ask on a handshake, listen, if you know that there's a change coming, we do usually have a waiting list, but it usually takes time to bring somebody in, especially at the price point we're at. So we're asking people to give us notice, hear me, but also we're only going to continue with you if we're adding value. And that's the same thing in the financial advisor space. If you've got a financial advisor, there's no contract. You typically leave at any moment. So the only way you stay with them is if they're adding value. And of course, that then means that it just applies a ton of pressure to that coaching relationship to show up and crush it. So that's kind of the mentality that we're going to continue with here. And hear me right. We've got a flat fee. It's not cheap, but I also appreciate that this is a community that understands the return on investment, not just of dollars, but of time. And for you to invest an hour twice a month into your own personal growth and learning, Jim Rohn used to say you should invest at least 4% of your revenue back into your own personal growth. And I think coaching could certainly be I would suggest a higher return on investment than something like Tony Robbins, which we've all been fired up for the moment. If you'll allow me, Matt King asked me at one point, he left Vector and started up a new company called Blue Chip Maintenance. And he was like fired up to invest into his team. He was like, Trent, I need the Tony Robbins. I need the book. I need the seminar, the workshop. What's the hot thing to send my group to? They're really talented, but they're green. They don't have much experience. We need to level them up right now. I said, what you're asking for does not exist. Outside of coaching, the coaching allows for both the context and the contact, the consistency, the regular contact. So if we try something and we miss, we're listening fast and we can adjust quickly. And it's all one-on-one. So it's not a group. It's not an exercise where I got excited for a moment and then things taper off. That consistency is required to really forge leaders. And this is a growing industry because there's 76 million baby boomers, Brett. 76 million baby boomers retiring and dying, leaving the industry. Problem is they created an industry that requires like 76 million people to run it. Which is why you go to Subway and sometimes the owner's making you the sandwich. That's not why she bought this thing. But she can't hire somebody right now. It's $23 an hour. Point being is that there's a labor shortage that we hear about quite a bit. Well, there's also a corresponding leadership shortage. And coaching helps these companies do more with who they have. I do believe that there's latent leadership potential just kind of waiting out there to be activated. And coaching is the best way to be able to move that forward. So
I feel like when it comes to coaching, something that comes up a lot with my leaders is this idea of tough conversations. Like they know there's something they need to bring up. They know that there's someone they lead that has something that needs to be asked, but maybe they're not quite sure how to do it. Maybe they don't know how to find the courage to be able to do it. You know, how do you view tough conversations? How do you think we need to look at them as leaders? And what advice do you have on them in general?
See, here's what's, again, part of the genius of the coaching and companies bringing in a coach to be able to have some of those conversations. In my experience, Brett, when people are aware, they adjust. So sometimes it's not a heavy, hard hammer session required. And I would suggest that any of those difficult conversations need to be handled with care. I've said for years, if I have to cut today, I'm going to use a scalpel, not the rusty scabbard. A scalpel which inflicts the least amount of pain. It's designed to heal, not harm. So I would encourage DVM CSPs that are working with a team or perhaps they're coordinating events, etc. Difficult conversations need to happen in person. You need to have desired outcomes that are very clear in your mind what we're going for, and ensure that the goal is never punishment. It's never punitive. It's got to be getting unstuck and moving us forward. That's when we're having difficult conversations, be real clear. And I almost, for me, a parent is probably the best analogy for that. It's the same thing when I'm disciplining or correcting my kids. Is the goal is always got to be correction, not punishment. And I'll say this: if I'm frustrated, now's not the time to do that. I need to be even as the leader, as the servant leader in that scenario, to make sure I'm not scratching the itch of my frustration, but I'm actually working with this person's best interest at heart. And if we can do it that way, those difficult conversations actually feel way less difficult. I will say, as a coach, because people are opting in, it's not like I'm bringing hard conversations with teeth and are slamming them. That's not how that works. Usually people are aware. So if somebody, here's a classic example. If somebody says, hey, it's what, January 10th when we record this, somebody goes, yeah, New Year's resolution, I'm going to the gym. And they're fired up. And then it's like the 10th and they've gone once. I'm like, well, a difficult conversation there might be, Brett, if I had a difficult observation, would you be open to hearing it? So I'll ask permission, which, I grew up with three brothers. If I know the punch is coming to my stomach, I got a chance at like flexing and maybe it doesn't devastate me, right? If I know it's coming. And I say that with a wink towards, if I'm going to bring a blow, preparing you for it is a kindness. So listen, if somebody authentically in that moment is like, this is not a good day for me to hear that type of feedback, great, I'll hold on to that. It's not about me in that moment. Usually, I'm saying almost always, it's, yeah, I would love to hear it. Listen, you have an objective here, a goal to get healthy this year, and your goal is to go to the gym 3 times a week. You've been once in 10 days. Are you actually serious about this, or are you just curious or interested? So I'll ask questions to try and help them get unstuck. That's the goal, though. It's not, you suck, and this is one more thing that you're not good at. That is usually how accountability is felt to many of our participants in the past. How I like to frame an accountability in this case is, on the front end, tell me how you would like to go to the gym 3 times. Awesome. Let's do this. Accountability, when you go, send me a text. Send me a picture of the weights. I'm going to celebrate you, high five you through the phone. That's accountability, but it's positive accountability. It's celebrating progress and the fact that you made a move.
Patience is the word that came to mind when you were answering that. I think oftentimes it's because we care, right? It's because we're like, we create this scenario in our head. If I don't fix this person or this habit or whatever right away, they're going to leave or they're going to mess everything up or whatever. Where do you think that patience comes from for you? Why are you able to not be in a hurry to I don't do it for them or force it upon them, or like you said, if you said, hey, are you prepared if I had maybe a tough observation? If they said, no, today's not the day, your willingness to live to see another day and do it on the right day, like, where does that come from? What do you do? What are you coaching yourself in that moment to not jump at the opportunity every time?
I love that question, Brett. I think identity drives behavior. So if I identify as being a net giver, a coach, a leader, a father that's a good dad, it's not just about this one conversation. I've got to decide over the length of our relationship where I want that to be going. And if I scratch the edge of frustration right now and in the tyranny of the busy, just lash out because I'm angry right now and you let me down, I'm not serving you. And if I'm going to be a true servant leader, for me, it's a matter of integrity to serve in this moment. There's urgency to move you forward, but usually if it's a 3-year problem, we're not going to fix that in 3 hours. That's going to take some time. Usually not 3 years to get out of, but it's usually not 3 weeks or 3 months either. So I would say I'm turning 50 in March. Some of that, I think, does come with age. And even just celebrating the idea of not being hasty. If we just take our time on this, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And if my goal really is to move you forward, in my experience, I would really rather the candle versus the sparkler. The candle throws more light, more heat, and it's more long lasting, and I would say overall more effective. But the sparkler is sexy, isn't it? The sparkler is exciting. It's just here and it's gone in seconds. The candle can go for hours. The candle has more value, in my opinion. So if I say, what kind of leader do I want to be? A consistent, solid, effective leader, candle, or a wild, dynamic sparkler? I'd rather be the candle. But that's learned over time, I think, to a certain extent.
Sure. Yeah. But that longevity, real change, long lasting change, not, all right, we're back. Okay. Two step forward. One. It's,
Well,
takes
and
a
sometimes
while.
it's people we see too, like leaders that serve us well. And you're like, well, what do I really like about this? They're consistent. I know what I'm getting. They're patient with me. Hey, when I'm bringing my worst day to them and they've got me dead to rights, they're not burying me. And I've appreciated and experienced that. John Kane, Joe Cardillo, and when you experience that, you want to pay that forward. I think it's a responsibility actually then to carry that forward and help other people live well and lead well too.
Hmm. So you reference patience on your end as the coach. I'm sure getting the person being coached to be willing to be patient is equally like, oh, we're really just trying to take this progress, not perfection. Like, okay,
Yeah.
we're got to get
Yeah.
comfortable. What are other habits that maybe you have found that I'm not going to say with everybody. I don't want to speak in hyperbole, but they're consistent with many of the top performers you
Mm-hmm.
coach. Either it's them with them getting the most out of coaching, or it's with them just being successful in their business. Any consistent habits or traits that you've kind of found and uncovered as strengths of theirs?
Hey, here's one, especially as we're coming up on the VMAs or the year-end awards.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrate the wins.
Mm.
Even the little ones. Celebrate progress. Celebrate the things that are real. So I remember having my best year ever at the time and being frustrated that we left significant CPO on the table like we did. Okay, here, full disclosure, I'm comfortable with this now. The older I get, the more comfortable I am with my failure. Capital F misses. I'm saying we launched, everybody hears Trent Booth launched over 800 people one year. It's true. Actually, 838. No, sorry, but here's the math. We launched 636 people and we did 838 in business. Now, if you do some quick math there, we should have done a lot more than 838. You launch over 600 people, you should ship 1 million in new business. And we didn't. And I was angry at myself. I was just disappointed and frustrated, but also I'd never done anywhere near 838 before. We were about to win the Sword of Excellence. And you know what I think tempered me, calmed me down real quick was the team I was bringing to the VMA, the team I was taking with me. I was so excited about the accolade and the trophy or the watch, whatever it is that you're getting. And it wasn't the watch. It wasn't the accolades. It wasn't the slideshow or praising Trent Booth and how awesome he is. It was the people. Looking around at the people was better than any trophy. So now when I look at the trophy or the watch, it was all about what that watch represented, is what the trophy represented, which is the people. But if I get back to that original point, which is celebrate the little wins, a big thing we find in coaching is that high performance people are just not satisfied. And I
So
would
it's like
caution them to
you don't want
try
to
and
take that away. That drives them, but also you got to be
stay
aware.
hungry.
Right.
But also, if you had a great meal, it's appropriate to go, that food was awesome. It's appropriate to celebrate good food and not worry if I'll never be hungry again. Is what I'm saying is let's find the next thing to be hungry with. Let's do both. I do find it a big part of coaching is just it's forced perspective. And part of that is to celebrate their wins. So when I put these glasses on, these lenses bend my eyes in a way that I can see clearly. It's a violent process if you think about it. It's kind of it's forcing it. Forced perspective is good. And in coaching, to have an outside person go, hey, let's pause for a second and see what was real about 23. Let's celebrate the wins that you did. Even if we didn't get the results that we wanted, what was good activity that if we repeat over and over again is going to lead you to where you want to go? What can we keep, if you will? So when we do an exercise like start, stop, keep, and we raise awareness of something that I'm not doing that I'd like to start, or that I'm doing that I need to stop, or that I'm doing well that I need to continue or keep doing, if you will. The start, stop, keep is a way to force some perspective and get us kind of out of our head and into linear thought. So the best way, in my opinion, to celebrate some of those wins and get some forced perspective is to get out of your own head and talk it through with a trusted partner and or journal it out and document it so that you are linear. You're consciously aware of what's going well. when I write down the wins, and I just recently did this with my wife even. So I did it separately. We do it together. We're like, hey, let's talk about the couples we hung out with this year. We had 13 double dates in 2023. That's significant. That doesn't happen without planning. And what a great year. Now, it's funny that our goal this year is 24. 24. I'm like, whoa. You could look at that and go, oh, it's 24 people we didn't get, or 11 people we didn't get together with in 23. It's the wrong question. Let's celebrate what was great about 23, and let's see if we can't have a better year and level up and get 2 dates a month going forward and go deeper.
You brought up start, stop, keep, which I believe when we first introduced, I referenced it as start, stop, continue.
It's the same thing. I love
right?
it.
But that exercise is an example of this. I've experienced the best coaching is where, like, in between calls, it's not like I'm like, ooh, coaching call with Trent, and then 13 days of slow decline, and then coaching call with Trent, 13 days of slow. It's actually where it's like, hey, coach call with Trent. Now I've been given resources, tools, things to do on my own. So there's actually a slow ascension sometimes. And the next call, it's like, yo, check out what I did since our last time we spoke. I think that's the best coaching I've gotten, is where it's not the call that's valuable. It's the resources and tools that I've been able to be given or identified that I can use on my own. Start, stop, continue being one of those. What are some of your favorite activities or exercises that you utilize when coaching that maybe seem to create the most impact or most action for people in between on their own on those calls?
It's a great question. The more that we can increase awareness in between sessions, the more people are taking action in between sessions. Therefore, the coaching relationship, the coaching investment is increasing in terms of return on investment, right? So ostensibly coaching works best. And one of the best at this was Nadine McGowan. One of the first people I saw that really took it seriously and didn't just treat the coaching prep form. We have 5 questions that you got to answer before we have our next session. Well, some people treat that like a homework assignment and just kind of get it done. Others journal in between sessions, go to that journal to farm and come up with their concepts. This is the thing I want to talk about. And it's been informed all month. If you consider it like, if you take a tree and cut it across, you've got the dark rings and you can count how old the tree is. But the real growth is not the dark rings, it's the light rings that exist. That's also the real growth happens in between the sessions. So technically, if somebody's getting 2 calls a month, they're working at least as much time outside of those sessions as in the sessions. 2 50-minute prep sessions for the 2-minute coaching sessions. We're together for 2. You're on your own for the other 2, journaling and working hard on it. We do have other exercises, and it does vary because we don't have curriculum. Every single coaching relationship is unique, every single one. And I've had hundreds without hyperbole over the years. And there's no 2 that are the same because every client is different. However, there are certain exercises that when it does come up, we've exercised and have been really advantageous. One I think I invented, Brett. I call it micro journaling now. And it was to have just increase my awareness throughout the day. I would say I functionally believed before then that if I had a good start to my morning, that would trajectory carry me through the day. Turns out that's just not how humans work. So I was like blown away. I would consider myself a pretty positive person. I set 3 alarms a day. Let's call it 9, noon, and 5 at the end of the day, let's say, or 9. And the simple question on my phone was, what's my emotional state? This is micro journaling. 3 times a day, the alarm goes off. What's my emotional state? I look at my wheel of emotions and I pick one that most accurately describes what I am at right now and a little bit of context. So what's my emotional state and what's happening right now? So example, fired up. My son just won his hockey game. Nice. Captured the emotional state and some context. Nice. I was shocked though, when I looked back over a week and I was below the line more than half of the time. Positive, dude, vector trade. Below the line, negative emotion, or at least neutral or less. More than half of the entries. Frustrated. I'm like, whoa, there's one. 9 o'clock in the morning. Alarm goes off. What's my emotional state? I'm frustrated. I'm like, why? That's crazy. I just got to the office. What's happened? had a great start. Got up early, worked out, read my Bible, and had some food. I should be great. Somebody cut me off on the way to work. And it was still bothering me, which is dumb. And that's what I said in real time. I was like, that's dumb. Delete. And I pivoted into a new emotional state. But I'm really glad I checked in, because who knows? I could have gone into a coaching session pissed off. That's not helpful.
That
right? So I was able
reminds
to
me of something
tweak it.
that I know you've said it. I've said it because you've said it. Or maybe something I've realized and uncovered is like, I've got most of the answers. I just have to create space to realize I have most of the answers. And that's not meaning we as human beings, like
Yes. Oh,
we
yeah.
have most of the answers we need. We just don't create the space, in your case, Michael journaling, to give ourselves a shot to like realize it, right?
Yeah. Just
For the
slowing
person that
down for a
goes, I
second.
don't want to slow down. I don't have time to
Yeah.
slow down for 5 minutes 3 times a day. Like I can't wrap my head around that.
Sure.
What any thoughts, any feedback, anything that you're like, actually you'd realize, anything there?
Well, I would say you're going to work hard, but not necessarily hard and smart. And you won't know because you're going so fast. And listen, you can get pretty far with that mentality. I did. I worked really hard, and just work ethic alone can get us up to a pretty good place. You will hit a ceiling though. And at some point, if you won't slow down and pause and take stock of what you're doing and become aware, you're gonna hit that glass ceiling and stay stuck. The only way to burst through that is to do the work, right? So I would encourage not just the reading. A lot of people are like, well, I'm listening to the podcast. I'm like, well, okay, great. You're bombarding your brain with good ideas, vitamins for your mind. However, are you digesting them, or are they just going through like corn? Like if you're going to absorb the information, you got to pause and do the work. You got to journal. You got to say, okay, what am I actually doing? And the journal might go, okay, I learned this. I like this. I believe this to be true. Now, how do I implement it? How do I change my behavior? So it's not just what you know, it's how you implement what you know. The answers lie within the system. Yes, you know the things you ought to do. Are you aware of those things? And are you making adjustments to your behavior? Because if you're not, then you're probably living in a world of delusion. We just had a coaching session where we're talking about there's really no neutral. We're either spinning up or we're spinning down. Circling the drain, not good, or we're spinning up. And there's a cost that we're going to pay. There's a price. If there's things that we know you ought to do and we're not doing them, that takes a toll on you. It works the other way though, right? Somebody goes, you know what? I'm going to start working out in 2024. And they join the gym and they've been even, let's say 3 times in the first 10 days. Now, when they go New Year's resolution, they go, I'm taking action on that. That feels good. When they go, should I make my bed today? It's easier to say yes, because they're in the law of strong currents. And that strong current is spinning up. I'm actually in a good spot right now. Hey, I'm having no drinks in January. And therefore I'm like, oh, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm healthier right now. You know, oh, I scheduled a physical coming up with my GP, and I'm going to make sure that I'm good. And there's nothing that I should be worried about. I'm doing good things that I know I ought to do. And there's a positive momentum that comes with that. There is, unfortunately, a negative momentum that I would say for years I would have avoided. I don't want to be aware of the things I'm not doing. And if I'm not aware, it won't hurt me. That is not true. Jim Rohn used to say that ignorance is bliss. No, ignorance is disaster, is what he would say. Ignorance. And by the time you find out, usually it can be too late. It really can.
I'm reading a book right now, and it's primarily about intentional growth. And to your point, we're either going to become aware of those things on our own terms and get to assertively cause the change and the growth, or it will be forced upon us and it will not be convenient and it will be at the worst time and we will not be in control. You talked about deep versus wide, where hey, I'm listening to all these podcasts, I'm reading all these books, whatever, versus I know something we've talked about before. It probably is more beneficial for some people to read the same 3 books every single year and go
if
really
it's a
deep.
great book, yeah.
Really, yeah, right. And this idea of going deep on the most important stuff versus just wide. I think you said taking a lot of vitamins, but are you digesting?
Well, I have friends that go, I'm going to read 50 books this year. I'm like, well, that's great if you're gleaning the knowledge. Now, I would say there's probably still a benefit of eating good food, right?
Sure.
You're going to have a shot. However, if I had to choose between mining all the great ideas of these books that I've loved. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is an annual read for me. It's perennial, right? Books, spiritual book like Gentle and Lowly's for me, a perennial read now. I'm like, you know what? I celebrate the truths in these books so much. And just because I read it doesn't mean I got it. I want to go deeper in these and make sure I'm implementing them. I might be more effective with my 3 great books than somebody who blasted through 50 and can't tell me about any of them.
Mm.
So you might have some of the ideas, but I don't want to glance the knowledge. I want to go deep on the great knowledge. Let me also say this. I've read a lot of books. A lot of them are good, not great. I got a stack of great books waiting for me. If the book's just good, I put it down. Because what I found sometimes, maybe this will resonate with some of your listeners, I get stuck and I'm not liking that book, not digging it. It's fine, but I'm not reading now because I don't want to keep going in that book. And it's not like Netflix where I'll watch 4 or 5 different shows. I'm like binging one book. No. Read 3 or 4 different books and put the good ones away and read only the great ones is what I would suggest. I also love the idea of diversifying the types of books that you're reading. Once upon a time, for me, it was only leadership development books. Dude, nothing on emotional intelligence, nothing on nutrition, nothing on, relationships or authenticity. Diversify what you're reading, go a little bit deeper, but also identify what are the best books in my position in this role. And once you've identified those, I would go deep. I would go hard into the paint on those.
Once somebody does identify whatever that learning is, whatever they've identified as, hey, this is my big move, this is my one thing. And then when they struggle to apply what they've learned, or they struggle to carry out action steps that they decided they needed to take, what's the move then? Like, whether it's directly for them or as a coach, like, what's the move to, is it going backwards? Is that really the right decision? What was it rooted in? Is it, no, we're doubling down on this, we need to pivot the strategy? Like, what do you do?
So I'll usually lead with questions. And again, if the answers lie within, I'll try an appreciative inquiry approach. So the first 2 questions have to do with what's currently true or working well in other areas that you could apply here to get unstuck. When you've been implementing information well in the past, what were you doing? So there's probably best practices that we could lean back on from your own experience. So I start there because that's low hanging fruit. That's an easy one. You can do it. I don't have to convince you. You already know how to do it. Then the third one would be, okay, well, what are things that you've thought about before that you've never tried? And or are there other books or resources that you're aware of that you're curious about to go and get some more information so you can level up? But in my experience, people usually have a 10 out of 10 version of what this could look like. If they just did the things that they know about, they're going to start moving forward. They're going to find a difference there. And almost regardless of the topic, whether it's implementing books or personal growth curriculum or goal setting for 2024. So the idea is asking, when you've been good, what were you doing? Hey, what else is working right now that you could also use as truth here? And is there outside information that you're curious about that we should go investigate? I'll just ask some questions there.
So I had a note in my show notes to not let this episode get done without asking. And I feel like this is a good spot before I pivot to a new area of questions. If you're still tracking and categorizing all your own expenses, I have a message from your CPA. Stop. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are your goals include growing your sales. And one way to do that is delegating admin responsibilities by trading time for money. Rising Stock and MyBooks.pro is exactly what you need. Rising Stock is an all-encompassing financial tracking and coaching program where MyBooks.pro is exactly what it sounds like. They just do your books. You can choose to just have them track your expenses or take advantage of everything they have to offer. Do your business and your CPA a favor by scheduling a free intro call today at linktree/CSP60. That's linktr.ee/CSP60. That's linktree/CSP60 with a dot before the 2 E's. Because being a Canadian, it's no surprise you're a big hockey guy. And
yeah, it's true.
I heard Senators are undefeated the last 7 games that you have attended.
I just need to attend more games because we're way under 500 and on a
People
massive
want to
losing
know,
streak right now. Yeah.
are you their
Yeah.
team's unofficial good luck charm?
It could be that I've watched them with my kids too. So it's undetermined. I know it's a small sample size when you're talking 6 to 7 games, but that's true. And I don't know if I would say it's universally true, but we should just get to more Senators games, which is hard to do when we live like 500 miles away. But they're
I
coming
would
around
agree.
town this
A
month.
larger sample size is important to find out if this is real.
Indeed. Also, congratulations to USA under 18 champions, the Americans. They just won it in Sweden. Yeah, nicely done. Future's
Nice.
bright in America.
Hey, man. We got some good young talent.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I mean, my goodness.
So my favorite Senators are Americans. Yeah, it's real.
It's crazy. It's crazy. This last year's
So my favorite people are Americans.
We're all right. We do some stuff good.
I mean, I walk among you and everybody forgets I'm Canadian unless I get put on blast. But, or I say
dual.
about.
You're dual. You're dual, right?
Not yet. I'm working on it. I got green card. I'm a legal alien. Yeah, it's good.
Let's
green
go.
card. I'm an immigrant. Everybody forgets.
Now
I sound like you.
Kids
Look
are
like
auto
you.
dual, right? Kids.
The youngest one is auto. We've paid for Katie to get her full citizenship, and we're working on Jake now. Who was born in Canada, but he was like 8 weeks old when we moved down. He turns 20 in a few weeks. It's crazy. Yeah.
If they ask for like a letter of recommendation or something,
I'll keep you in mind. It's helpful. I mean, he's grown up here. He doesn't even have an American passport, but he barely knows what ketchup chips are in Canada. You need to know. If you know, you know, by the way.
News.
If you know.
To me. So CSPs out there, I think a lot of them get to this moment where they get to somewhere around that 2 to 400, 2 to 500, somewhere in that 2 to 400-ish $1,000 annual range.
Yeah.
And many of them can get there independently.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them can get there on blunt force trauma, work, talent.
Throw enough mud against the wall. And
I saw them do it. I heard them do it. I'm going to, for those people like that looking to make the jump to a, $500, $750 million a year, but they're so independent. Maybe they don't express much interest in accountability. If I'm someone looking to support that person, what's that look like at its best?
I would suggest that they get a coach. They let them self-select, let them find the coach because they're still in charge, right? So you talk about being a servant leader as a coach. I serve 100%, and the agenda comes from the participants. So they're the CEO. I'm their chief leadership officer, meeting with them twice a month. I'm a vendor helping their business grow. That is my entire reason for being. Again, the leverage point there, you're going to hit that ceiling, and then you have to tweak. We have to change what we're doing to leverage and break through the ceiling. Not just working hard, but hard and smart. And again, the CSPs, what I love, man, as you're talking about $200,000 to $400,000, I got to witness the genesis, the absolute birthplace of the CSP position, which was John Kane and Steve Porzik way back in the day, developing that FSM community before we even knew what a CSP was. We had career FSMs that they're like, okay, and most of them were not doing 400 grand back then. In fact, if you were over 100, you were crushing it. Now that's not even a good quarter one for some of our top CSPs. What's fascinating is to see how that's grown and how sophisticated the roles become. The leaders in our CSP community, I would put up against the best DVMs at Vector. I would put 100%. Them up against the best entrepreneurs 100%. In America. They're absolutely sophisticated, brilliant leaders, and I love what this has become. So much thanks to Steve Porzik and John Kane for having the vision and work with people like Josh Muller and, Curtis J. Hughes back in the day to develop something like this that's so exciting for us to be able to step into. And to be able to now step into that as a coach and support some of those. That's about the right time to start getting some paid coaching. Would be, all right, I've probably topped out for what I can do with a journal just by myself. Accountability, if it's positive and feels good, is necessary for us to get forward. Again, a lot of the financial advisors that I'm working with, nobody's holding their boots to fire in terms of doing their calls or doing their prospecting or doing the learning that they said they wanted to do. Having a coach invites that. It actually is a catalyst to be able to get them to that next level. And often when we invest money like that. I just paid 12 grand for a coach this past fall. When that happens, you show up different. You got skin in the game, and you're going to act differently when you're paying for that. You're not just going to blow off a call, you're paying for it. So, like, if we want to really move forward. Now, I also recommend that don't invest big dollars in that until you're ready. I recommend people, if they're just shipping 100 grand a year, you're probably not ready for like a coach where you're paying $1,000 a month. Try to keep that commensurate. Check in with your DVM or your RM. When you're ready, though, invest. It's funny. I talked to a hockey player buddy of mine. He goes, I paid for coaching once. I brought $100,000 check to my first session. I was like, dude, I'm not charging enough. 100 grand is what he charged. And he goes, that's the first year I made over $1 million. Huh. I was like, well, that math works. It's also not guaranteed, but it is the sign of like, hey, I'm serious about moving forward. And when you're getting to that ceiling of $200,000 to $400,000, find the right partner, it's the same thing as a great bookkeeper. I know a lot of the people here go to Adam Stock. Find the right CFO partner, the right accountant partner, the right financial advisor partner who's your CFO to be able to help you not just make the money, but mitigate what tax exposure you have and help you. Hey, did you know you could do this? That's what we're looking for here. And just as many different partners as you can get with bookkeeping, coaching, financial planning. I would even suggest good therapist. We're not done having hard days, I don't think, right? Having good partners that we can help get us forward and get unlocked so we can level up. That's the move, but don't do it alone. Check in.
Yeah, anytime that I can invest some money here that's going to create a larger outcome for me over here, on areas that I'm not an expert. And if I tried to become an expert, it's going to take away from my main thing.
Yeah.
That's an easy trade. Really, really easy trade. My CPA just made me aware this summer of some new pass-through entity tax where saved me $2,000 on my taxes this year by making a $200 decision and having them fill out some paperwork. I never would have been aware. I never would have even known what to do. It would have cost me way over $200 in my time to even figure it out. No brainer. Absolute no brainer.
Tax mitigation became my new favorite hobby as of this past year, which means I'm going to pay taxes, my fair share. And the law is exhaustive. And there's a lot of things we get to do, especially as business owners, that the rank and file American doesn't have access to. We can do. There's a number of things we could do. I would rather put my money, for example, into charities than into the government. I think that this church is going to do a better job with this $10,000 than the government would. So I'm always looking for ways to mitigate my tax liability, right? So it's not just how much I earn, it's how much I get to keep at the end of that. And there's a lot of different ways. So again, I don't want to become an expert in that. I pay people to become an expert in that and give me knowledge and counsel.
But you identified that as an area of opportunity, something you were excited about. Like, what are the best ways for someone to identify what's their biggest area of opportunity? Because kind of like with books, like you mentioned, there's a lot of options on as business owners, as salespeople, where we can focus our energy, where we can focus our growth.
Yeah.
What have you found is the best ways for somebody to identify this one's actually going to cause me the most gains if I really focus on it?
You're going to hate my answer. You got to ask yourself the question. If you ask yourself the question, what is my greatest area of opportunity? And you ask it today and you like your answer, you journal it out maybe a little bit so you've got a record of it. You come back to it again tomorrow and ask the same question. It might be a little different. It might be the same one, which will tell you something. You ask it a third day in a row. What are my greatest areas of opportunity? What if you asked that question for 30 days? You're going to come up with answers that are going to be exceptional. And they're going to be different than the answers you give yourself next year. What is my greatest area of opportunity right now? The more often you can ask that question, you're going to come up with exceptional answers. And instead of me trying to give a blanket answer right now, it sounds like a bit of a cop-out. I'm saying the answer lies within the quality of questions that we ask ourselves. And the question you ask yourself is the right one. What do I need right now to level up? And then I would just take it into different areas. What's the thing I need to do to level up in my relationships? What do I need to do to level up in my wealth management? What do I need to do to level up in my business productivity? What do I need to do to level up in my parenting skills? or, my wife and I are about to celebrate 25 years. What do I need to research to make sure that the next 25 are better than the first? So by asking the question, though, I truly believe that we're going to come up with the answers. And if have the courage to take action on those answers, what an amazing curated, designed life you're going to lead.
I did hate your answer until I realized, like, it's not necessarily beneficial to tie yourself to one answer for an extended period of time. Number one, we can't trust our brains every day of the week, or our hearts, or our, show up differently. And yes, our problems change based on the day, the month, whatever. So it's healthy to check back in over and over and over again on the same question. So I loved your answer.
I appreciate that.
Working with Trent Booth and the Veritas Leadership Group over the last decade has unlocked things within me that I never knew existed until they were coached out of me. If you're listening and you feel stuck, or like you have another gear that you're having a hard time getting to, Trent's offering a free intro call to any of our listeners. I love Veritas because it's an amazing combo of mentoring and coaching. I get what I need when I need it most. It's also a flat monthly rate, which is awesome for anyone looking to give it a shot with no contract and no long-term commitment. Schedule a call with Trent today by going to linktree/CSP60. That's linktr.ee/CSP60. That's linktree/CSP60 with a dot before the two E's.
I appreciate that. I would say there are some universal things that won't shift. For example, one of my core values would be to read my Bible daily, right? So that's one that I don't think I'm going to age out on. So there are certain ones that all right, I might ask, okay, what can I do to level up in that?
I was just going to say that.
Right.
Because it's I think we talked just the other day, I realized my habit was getting stale. So I identified, hey, instead of doing prayer, Bible, and journal a specific time every day, 30 minutes, it was no, I'm going to do prayer for 30 minutes straight 2 times a week, journal 30 minutes straight 2 times a week, and get into my Bible 30 minutes 2 times a week. And now I'm going deeper. And that's what I needed to do to change that. So you're right. It's okay, if I've established a good habit, but it's not hitting the same way it was, maybe it's not changing the habit. Maybe it's
classic example. The answer that fed you last year might not serve you this year. So if I start, and I'm a big fan of minimum viable product, what's the simplest version for me to just start with? It'd be okay, I'm going to randomly open my Bible to whatever page and just read it today. Good start. But eventually I was you know what? I've never read all the way through cover to cover. So it was let me get a plan where if I read for 5 minutes a day, it'll take me 2 years to get through, but I'll get through. And now I can check that box of the dreams list of all right, read the Bible cover to cover. And I've done it 4 times now, which is not trying to brag. I'm just excited about, without resetting that goal and having a plan and asking the question, how can I level up here? It doesn't get done. It just doesn't happen. So we need disruption. We need partners to help us. We need accountability. We need to dream. Frankly, a lot of these answers come out of a journal, not because journaling in and of itself is magical. It's the awareness that comes from the journal. It's the awareness. Jim Rohn would say that 50% of the value of journaling is reviewing what you wrote. So asking the questions and then going deep in the answers.
When I'm journaling on a regular basis, I tend to be keeping myself out of funks more regularly. But the word funk, it does come up a lot when I'm working with anyone, whether it's a leader, salesperson, fresh, green, assistant, whatever. We all experience this. What do you think it means when someone feels they're in a funk? And what are the questions we can ask to get ourselves out of it?
Oh, beautiful. I would also say this is one of the areas that I think that coaching helps with, because there is a built-in disruption there. Because I don't care how good you feel today, it's just coming. There's ebb and flow. There's peaks and valleys. Hey, I'm in the valley today. Oh, I'm on the summit today. Usually we're not aware when we're on the summit, which is sad. We're usually aware when we're in the valley.
Yeah.
This is tough. And here's the problem. My heart lies to me all the time. My emotions lie to me all the time. And if I'm not curating that, if I'm not teasing that out, getting linear, I might start making agreements with those emotions. If I'm in a funk, for example, which is natural and normal for humans to cyclically be in a funk, right? And just because I've had my last funk doesn't mean I'm done. Even if I'm on medication to avoid the prolonged season of being in a funk, we still need coping mechanisms to work through it. So the first thing I'll do when I pause and I'm aware of the fact that I'm in a funk is give myself permission to be in a funk. Hey, man, I'm below the line today. Hey, I'm playing hurt today. It's okay. It's okay to not feel good. I still need to do good today. I still need to do these things regardless of how I feel. I'm going to do these things today. And sometimes things drop off that list, right? All right, this big project, the way I'm feeling today, I don't know if I can pull that one off. Other times I'll challenge myself. Hey, dude, it's okay to not feel great. You still got to do this one today. So I'm trying to not just allow my feelings to dictate my actions or behaviors. I've got to have my commitments driving the decision train, which we've seen a number of times. If my commitments pull me through those moments, even when I don't feel good, I can count on the fact that if I keep doing good activity over time, I'm going to get results, which is going to help those emotions and feelings get back on side eventually. Right? What's more devastating is if I do nothing and just avoid the entire time. And I've had seasons where I just avoid and get stuck. Usually what happens is when we get through that season, it's worse. So now I might feel okay, but now my circumstances are dire. And that's now causing me to not feel good. That's compounding effect of the negative aspect. That's bad. So when the funk now is going to start affecting you long term, that's where we've really got to be careful. To the point you made earlier, you're like, hey, if I'm not paying attention, I think we're all susceptible to that. You could be on a good trajectory and then you're not. And it could have been avoided if we were becoming consciously aware and managing those emotions. Now, I want to make this clear. Just because we're aware that we can manage emotions doesn't make managing emotions easy. There's times where I was frustrated because I got cut off and simply decided to not be upset anymore. That was easy. I've had other seasons where I'm like, hey, somebody just passed away and I'm appropriately mourning their loss. And suck it up, buttercup, rainbows and unicorns is not appropriate in that moment. Sometimes I can't just pivot into feeling good. Sometimes I'm just really frustrated and I can't be not frustrated in this moment. Well, it's important that I not act on that frustration. That's times where I say, Booth, it's time to stay down. When I'm in an extended period of funk, John Kay and I used to say all the time, we'd finish SLC, which means you're laying out a ton of energy for months, preparing for this big event. Then you lay out all this energy and don't sleep for 3 days. No big decisions after a big event. No big decisions when I'm in a funk. No important decisions about my marriage, about my business when I'm in a funk. I hold on to those decisions and not going to make agreements with how I'm feeling in those circumstances.
Do you communicate? Like, did you go as far as to, hey, just so you know, I'm not in the best spot right now. I'd love if you could give me 48 hours and let's see where I'm at. I just don't want to make, like, when do you decide, hey, it's actually important for me to communicate this?
Yeah. You just actually role played an amazing example of that. That could work with your kids or if a rep or a manager has an important question for you, you might say, listen, really not in a great space right now. Let me think about that one. And let me get back to you tomorrow because I think my answer would be different, right? I don't trust my gut right now. I've gone to my kids at times and said, hey, dad's below the line today. Today's not the day to ask for the new pair of hockey pads. Okay. Today's not the day to ask for the sleepover. Today's not the day to ask for money that you don't need. So I might, there's been seasons where I communicate that. And if I'm at my best, I might be like, hey, I'm a little below the line today, but I'm playing hurt. So let's keep this to like essential conversations today. The more I can lean into that and give people a heads up, now that's helpful. Now, actually, they might say, all right, actually, let me help you with this. Can I do the agenda today? I'm like, that actually would be amazing. So actually, by sharing my weakness, that invites other people to step up. Well, that's an unintended consequence. That's very positive. And the only reason I wouldn't share that I'm below the line is if I'm worried that someone's going to hold that against me or blow me up or weaponize it, if you will. So I'm pretty careful with who I share that with. I don't put that on Facebook, but below the line today, like, because they're getting a lot of, it's okay, Trent, hang on. I don't want that. Stay away from the light. I don't need that.
Time
right?
and place. Time and place.
However,
Uh,
in the right context,
yeah,
especially telling my wife, "Hey, not feeling great today." In that case, I'd be like, "Yeah, hey, pray for me, or can we get time a little bit later today? Today might not be the time for us to have the financial meeting." you know,
yeah.
like she can self-regulate because I gave her a chance by letting her know where I was at.
Trent, 1 minute or less for our last question. And this is a tough one. It might
Yeah.
take you a second to, but it's just what's something that I could have asked you today, or something that you're like, ooh, would love to share this, that you really think would help our CSP community, help our team, that maybe didn't get shared today?
Well, if people are interested in starting to coach, we've got price points that I think are fair. And we specifically went out and got newer coaches that don't mind working at lower price points. So I've mentioned some of my price points today. Those are really high. And I would assume most CSPs would not be looking to work with Trent Booth. We are looking for solutions where there might be a mastermind group for CSPs with access to me. It'd be a lower price point than coaching, but we haven't got that quite fleshed out yet. We do have excellent coaches that are not only certified by me, but we have regular conversations. Now, they don't break confidentiality, which is an essential part of coaching. But if they're stuck, the CSPs in this community would need to know that they're excellent people like Courtney Trembler, like Patrick Herrick, other people I wouldn't necessarily put on blast here, but, or on our website, that we could help you and get started with moving forward. Don't be afraid to splash around in it. And here's the point: not all coaches are created equally. There's a lot of weird out there. Get one that vibes and resonates with you. Get one that speaks your language. And I'd say the same thing for financial advising, for bookkeeping, for any of the vendors you have in your world. They work for you, and you should celebrate when you get to hang out with them,
Hmm.
right? When you get to connect with them and ask them your fun questions. We are trying to provide an opportunity. And frankly, part of this was not my plan. We currently don't have any CSPs at Veritas Leadership Group. We've given a 1 year, I would say, fallow. We kept the field clean. I've developed a great business without Vector clients. I'll put it that way. That said, is my daughter, who's now working in the Vector East headquarters, Katie Booth, was like, "Dad, if you can help people, if you believe that coaching is the single greatest way to improve a company, why wouldn't you help Vector?" I was like, oh, out of the mouth of babes. I was like, "Oh, all right, you're right. We should probably make this available." Not necessarily because we want to grow, although I'm really excited to have our best year ever again in 2024. It's so that we could be of service and we can help. I love Vector. I was there for 30 years, just retired last year, and I still talk about it in terms of we. I think in 20 years, if I'm still alive, I will still talk about Vector in terms of we. I love Vector. I love the man, dad, brother, son that I've become as a result of working at Vector. And now I would love to invest into that, into coaches celebrating those CSPs in the company as well.
Trent, there's a long, long list of people who would be included in me if I went over everybody that's helped over the 17 years of my leadership journey. Hard, hard to argue. You haven't had one of the biggest impacts on me during that time. I could say with confidence, I would not have made it as a DM without your help, guidance, coaching. I would not have gotten promoted to DVC, and eventually, hey, you got me, my M. So there,
You know,
1 for 2, not
pay it
bad,
forward.
man. Without you, probably don't get to marry Riley without help from you. Um, might not, depending on what school of thought you come from,
Mm.
uh, be a Christian without you. And I know you are somebody who you always deflect the praise onto the person that you're helping coach, because in reality, that's the way you coach. Is it's up to us to make those moves. You're not in complete mentor mode. You really want that change to be long term and from the person themselves. And I am so incredibly thankful for everything that you have provided for me, the resources you've given, the time, the energy, the love over the years. It has impacted more people than you will ever know. As you're saying things like uh, your influence on people like Stacy and Drew and Wes has obviously had an impact on the Southwest CSPs through the grapevine. Same thing can be said to anyone who has stepped foot into a meeting that I've ran, because I am proud to say 99% of the content, the exercises, the activities, the workshops were born within coaching calls with you. You have had a tremendous influence and impact on the business that I've gotten a chance to be a part of and been able to create. So seriously, bottom of my heart, thank you for everything that you've done for me and everybody on our teams that have had a chance to get a chance to know you over the years. It's such a blessing to have you, man.
Well, Brett, that feels really good to hear, and I celebrate it with you. I appreciate it. In fact, I'll say this: as a coach, you don't do it for that. I'm not doing it for that, the paycheck of the soul, but it's real nice when you get them. And I will say this: turning 50, I love that I'm at a place where I'm only working with people I really want to work with. And you're such a tremendous example, Brett, of investing into somebody, pouring into somebody and having them run with it and help so many other people. That is deeply satisfying. And I can't wait for who else. I can't help but fall in love with those I work with. I'll put it that way. And I've stopped trying. I'm all in for anybody I'm serving as a coach. And that makes it so I don't plan to retire. If I'm drawing breath, I'm going to be coaching people because I love doing it. And it's going to be one-on-one, not groups. It's the real difference that you can make in somebody's life. For me, it's been with that coaching, and to see you and dude, 5 girls and Riley and just all the people that you're impacting in the company and outside of the company. It is deeply gratifying to know that it just had even a little bit of influence there, man. I celebrate you, Brett Wiggins, as well. Thank you.
On record, Trent's not retiring, so he'll be coaching me for another 40 years. This is great. This is good news. It's a good day.
Lord willing.
Guys, thanks for hanging out for our 60 minutes of fire. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening. And for some of you watching, I want to remind you that all resources from today can be found at linktree/CSP60. That's linktr.ee/CSP60. That's linktree/CSP60 with a dot before the EE. If you want to be a member of our live Zoom audience for one of our upcoming shows, email bwiggins@vectormarketing.com. That's BWIGGINS@vectormarketing.com. If you loved what you heard today, I'd be honored if you followed, subscribed, or even rated us on whatever platform you use to find your 60 minutes of fire. We'll see you next time.